you can't expect everything to go perfect for you, but what you need to do is adjust and keep going because there's always going to be challenges and you just got to overcome them. Both Labor and Liberal, with their policies, are going to make housing more expensive. It's the middle class that pay the biggest fair share of tax in Australia. And we're one of the most overtaxed countries in the world. We've been missing our target for building properties every single month. Basically, since Trump got into power, there's been a lot of global uncertainty. What they're doing is they're trying to punish investors that have got multiple properties and make it harder. So the story is, yes, the banks, the government, developers, investors are all making money. What a lot of people do, they're waiting to see, sitting on their hands. And I'm going to show you an example of what happens when you wait. You're never, ever, ever going to find the perfect property. Okay, guys, me and my team are about to go live. So make sure you grab your beverage of choice, sit down, and you're in for an amazing show. Okay, hello and welcome to our weekly Money for Life Mastermind. I'm so glad you could all make it. I'm very excited. I'm actually coming to you live from Bali at the moment. Interesting story, because what I want to do is talk about what happened tonight. So I've been out for the day. I've come back, getting ready for our weekly meeting, and suddenly all the power goes off. I've got no internet, got no phone reception, nothing. And I go out the front, grab one of the guys, this little Indonesian guy, and I'm like, the power's off. What do I do? And he couldn't speak English. So I'm trying to explain, and I couldn't go on Google Translate because there's no reception or no Wi-Fi. So then I bring him inside, and I go to the light switch, and I switch it on, off, pointing to the light. He's like, oh, yes. And he comes back, and he goes, oh, it'll be 10 minutes. 10 minutes passes. No, didn't work. So then I'm like, hell, I'm going to be late because I've got like 40 minutes before we start. So I jumped on a motorbike, go down to this place here I'm at the moment at B Work, came in and said, I need a space where I can do a Zoom. And they're like, we've got a booth. And I had a look at the booth. It was tiny. I'm like, I can't do a booth. I'll give you your biggest room. And I ordered that. Then I come here and it's booked out. And I'm like, okay, give me a second biggest room. So I suppose the moral of the story is basically on your road to whatever you're trying to go, you're always going to have challenges. And you can't expect everything to go perfect for you. But what you need to do is adjust and keep going because there's always going to be challenges and you just got to overcome them. Because it could have been easy saying, well, I just can't do it tonight. But the thing is, I've made a promise, to come and do 45 of these a year. So I want to come in every week, unless it's a public holiday or I'm flying somewhere, and do this. Okay, so let's share my screen. The Australian housing market is rigged. That's the topic of today. Okay, so welcome to our weekly Thursday night live. Welcome, everyone. And I want to talk about what's happening. I want to talk a little bit about politics. Let's talk politics at the moment. The election is coming up this Saturday, and we're all going to go and elect, and we're going to be electing a new prime minister in Australia. And the elections in Australia aren't crazy like they are in America, because in America, people that vote for Democrats don't talk to people that vote Republican and all that. And I think, us here in Australia with Labor and Liberal, we're not going to hate each other if we vote for someone different. But I suppose the time has come for us to work out who we're going to vote for because, at the end of the day, I think everyone should be informed and really make up their own mind. I think listen to what people have got to say, but really at the end of the day, you're adults, you can work out who you want to vote for. But I'm going to put my two bobs in anyway. And both Labor and Liberal, with their policies, are going to make housing more expensive. That's the fact of it. And Greens as well. And I've actually got a few slides on the Greens, what they want to do. And it's pretty crazy. But, one thing, the Albanese government, what they want to do now is they want to start taxing unrealized gains, right? And what that means is, let's say you got money in the stock market and your stocks go up. Well, even though you've made no money, you have to pay June the 30th. You've got to pay because you've made money. Now, the problem is, though, if they're unrealized gains, if you haven't made the real money until you sell, and where are you going to get the money from, right? That's the thing. And that's the whole point. So personally, I think they're really going down a communist little road trip, and they're always trying to get rid of negative gearing and capital gains, the stuff. Someone said, Mark said, hey, George, I'm in Uluwatu. Nice. Uluwatu's lovely. I was there actually last month. So Saturday, we're going to be voting. I personally think Liberal are going to help the economy the most. Do I like Liberal? Not really, but do I prefer them to Labor and Greens? Yes, much more preferable. They're much better if you ask me, and they're much better when it comes to money, much better when it comes to creating a better life for the middle class. Because what you've got sort of three groups. You've got the ultra rich at the top. You've got the middle class. That's all of us here because we're investing in property. And then you've got the poor. And generally, Labor, what they do is they really try to give handouts out and really get the poor people, the people at the bottom, to really vote for. And then what they do is they try to make the middle class pay more taxes because the people at the top, they don't pay tax. The people at the bottom don't pay much tax either. It's the middle class that pay the biggest fair share of tax in Australia. And we're one of the most overtaxed countries in the world. Crazy. So that's a bit of an issue. At least Liberals are a little bit nicer to the middle class and small business owners and actually help out a little bit instead of trying to get rid of every tax deduction we can get. Because the Greens and Labor, they want to get rid of the 50% CSG tax exemption when you sell your property. They want to get rid of negative gearing, and they want to do all sorts of stupid things. And the Greens want to freeze rents, and it's crazy. So that's my two bobs. Okay, so if you look at this, the migration surge has put pressure on the rental market. So we've had 158,000 people coming into Australia over the quarter. And what's happening is putting pressure on the rental market. So if you look at that, net overseas migration, net permanent and long-term arrivals. You can see generally what the rate was back in 2000. It was like 100,000 people. And you can see now we're getting up really high. If you look at this graph here, 2022, and it looks like it's like 600,000 people in 1 year. Crazy. So there are actually 1.1 million permanent and long-term arrivals in the year to February 25. But it's been offset because 680,000 people left. So it's not that bad. So the thing is, migration is one of the biggest things that is putting pressure on our property market because of the supply and demand. And there's a few other things doing it as well. So what's happening is building costs are very expensive and it costs a lot to build. And because of that, that gets passed on to the buyer. And that's part of the reason properties are so expensive at the moment is building costs. Land's gone up, building costs are high as well. But also, then you've got more competition from the migrants and everyone else, and it creates a massive bubble. Now, this is the thing. So Australia's housing shortage is close to 300,000 accumulated shortage of properties, right? What does this mean? Well, we've been missing our target for building properties every single month since the Labor government actually put their targets in. They've never actually hit the target. And what happens is because we miss it every month, it accumulates. So, you miss it by 20,000 this month, then you got another 20,000. Then next month you miss it again, there's another 20, and it keeps rolling on for our targets. And our targets weren't that high, but we can't do it. So if you look at the housing supply in the mid 2000s, we had a balance. It was quite a good balance. But since then, we've doubled net overseas migration, and it's pushed the population demand ahead of supply. But also, you think about 2000s, we had no pressure of massive immigration. However, even though we didn't have a lot of pressure, property prices still went up, because property prices go up as inflation goes up and as a nation gets more prosperous. But at the moment, we've got inflation, more prosperity, immigration, land's gone up, scarcity's down, there's a lot more scarcity, and costs to build have gone up quite significantly. And the record construction bankruptcy is worse than the housing shortage as well. So if you look at this, right, and you look at the global, I can barely read this graph, it's tiny writing, but the global financial crisis, less builders went bankrupt during the crisis than what they did now recently. And you look at this, there's the red line of Albo's target. And the blue line is where we've been through history, from 1985 all the way through. And you can see we peaked at 2015. That's when we did really well. And we had a smaller population then, and we still didn't get close. And you can see now we're way below our peak. Now, the Greens' housing policies, right? What they want to do is they want to grandfather negative gearing and 50% capital gains discount for one investment property, and then every other property, they want to charge you full rate when you sell it, and they want to get rid of negative gearing. But they're not going to get anywhere. So that's the good news. So Aussie inflation has given the green light for the May rate cut for the RBA. Basically, since Trump got into power, there's been a lot of global uncertainty because he's been changing policies very quickly from one then to the next with the trade tariffs and everything else like that. So therefore, the RBA probably want to create a bit of stability and actually cut the rate to keep our economy going, because the stock market has been hammered in Australia, in America, around the world. I think America lost $6 trillion off their stock market because of the trade war so far, the tariffs, which is crazy. So basically, a lot of people that had their super in the stock market haven't done too good because of this. And the RBA is saying there's going to be a super cycle, which I've been talking about for a while, because what happens is when rates go down, property prices go up because the borrowing capacity goes up. And this is the interesting thing. So let's say you're making $125,000 per year gross. If you make $125,000 pre-tax income, with the rate drops that we're getting, you're going to be able to borrow an extra $95,000. Now, what do you think is going to happen if a lot of people get their borrowing capacity up by 100,000? Tell you what's going to happen, their budget goes up. That's exactly what's going to happen. And this is what is going to drive partly the next boom. Now, this is a very interesting thing, because as you probably know, I've been hammering Melbourne for a long time because you get a poor return and it was overpriced. But things have changed now. And you look at Melbourne now, Melbourne's actually quite cheap. The median value in Melbourne is 786,000. That's less than the national average. So there's actually some good buying there, because remember what we're doing when we're investing in property is part of the thing we're doing is looking at the gap. We're looking at the gap of where market is to where it should be. And if the market is below where it should be, that means there's an opportunity for growth. And if the market is above where it should be, that means it's going to decline. And for a long time, I've been saying Melbourne is not going to do so well. Well, have a look at these stats. So in the past 5 years, Melbourne's grown 10%. There you go. Now, if you compare that to Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, where I've been telling people to invest, if you look at the past 5 years where I've been telling people to invest, Brisbane, Adelaide, Melbourne, Perth, sorry, 71, 73, 77. Those three markets outperformed every other market in Australia. Now, I've been doing this for 20 years and I can see what's going to happen. Because when you've got enough data and enough experience under your belt, it's like having a crystal ball almost. And the last 10 years, Melbourne's gone up 43%. Where you look at Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, they've doubled in a lot of areas. So interesting, Victoria's got the largest share of first-time home purchases out of Australian states, owing to the state government's land tax increases, which have stifled investor interest. So what's happened is a lot of investors, the Melbourne government, they really want to join Venezuela, Cuba, and North Korea with their policies. But what they're doing is they're trying to punish investors that have got multiple properties and make it harder. And that's why a lot of people have left and aren't investing in Melbourne. So with the caveat, with Victoria, there are certain areas that are good to invest in, but you've got to really be mindful of the numbers and make sure it works when it comes to land tax and everything else like that. But this is an interesting graph, and this is a very powerful graph. And this is what I do with every capital city. Is if you look at the blue line, right? The blue line is Melbourne prices compared to the national average. And then the red line is the national average. And look where it is now. And look where it was when I was telling everyone, don't buy Melbourne. It was way above it. So when you look at this line, it's obvious that when the blue line is below the red line, there can be some good value properties to buy. And when the blue line is above the red line, it's probably not a good idea. Now, this is very simplistic, and I'll tell you why. Because this is sort of partly the property clock. And the property clock is how we predict where prices are going to be. Now, this is Melbourne house prices versus other capitals. We're talking macro. But we've got to go in and actually look at individual suburbs, because different suburbs have got a different graph compared to the average of where they need to be. And that's where the real money is made, when you dig deep and really drive the data and use it properly. I hope that makes sense, everyone. So the pressure is real, right? So, but don't listen to the media, because this is what we're told. With supply, we're told we don't have enough land. Now, I don't know about you, but that is the biggest load of BS that I've ever heard. Of course, we've got enough land. We've got a whole continent of land in Australia. The land is not the problem. Zoned land is locked up or delayed, and that's what's really happening. And that's the real problem. All right? Demand. Too many people are buying. That's what we're told, but not really. Demand is boosted by grants and migration. That's the real story behind why too many people are buying. Prices, market forces. No, they're fueled by policy and banking strategy. That's the real truth. Because it's good to know what the truth is. So, because you look at dwelling construction versus population change. I've shown, you've seen this graph before, and you've got population change up here, the green one, and they've got dwelling construction down there. So the system is rigged. Who's winning and how you can too. So the system's built to reward certain players. You can choose to be one of them, or you can choose not to. So look at the banks. Banks, they profit from debt. So what you can do is you can use smart leverage. The government, as values go up, taxes rise with values. So they benefit as well. So what you need to do is use structures to minimize your tax. Developers, they control the supply, but you can buy direct or off market. Investors, they get long-term gains from rent equity. That can be you. And foreign capital, global money is competing with you. Learn to outposition it. So the story is, yes, the banks, the government, developers, investors are all making money. What you need to do is you need to be one of them instead of missing out, right? So you can't change the system, but you can learn to win within it, learn the rules. And I've spent 30 years of my life learning them. They're the 3 moves that change everything. Step number 1, shift your thinking. So stop waiting, stop saving harder, start moving strategically and start investing. What a lot of people do, they're waiting to see, sitting on their hands. And I'm going to show you an example of what happens when you wait. You got to learn the game, right? The rules of the game have changed. And the people that know the rules, they're going to be making money. And the people that don't know the rules, you're going to be missing out. So understand finance, leverage, location, strategy, and negotiation. And step 3, get guidance. Don't go it alone. Use a team that's been there and done that. Those are the 3 steps for people watching. If you want to really get to the next level and become one of the wealthy, become one of the winners from all this instead of one of the losers. Now, what I want to do is I want to show you an example and the cost of waiting. Waiting feels safe, but it's the most expensive mistake people can make. So this is Alex here. He's got savings of $159,000. He saw a property that's for $798,000. And the reason I'm using these numbers is this is a real life example. Now, he decides to wait. Why does he decide to wait? There's many reasons. 1, he's not sure. 2, he's not sure if this is the right property. It's not exactly right. The thing is, you're never, ever, ever going to find the perfect property. You know what I mean? There's always going to be something that's not quite right about it, because if it was perfect, it'd be millions of dollars. Or Alex, he decides to wait because he thinks the market's too high, wants to see what's going to happen. It maybe the Trumps and the tariffs might drop it. You've got Sarah here. She's got a saving of the same amount, $159,000. She saw this property for $798,000. She discussed it with her mentor and she decides to buy the property. Now, 2 years later, Alex, he's been saving more, but now this property is worth $795,000. So he's priced out of the market because now he needs $200,000 to get the same property. Sarah, she saved a bit of money, but she's also she owns a property, but she's made $177,000 of equity gain and got $12,000 worth of tax deduction at the same time. So who's smarter? Type in the chat. Sarah or Alex? Sarah. Now, Sarah's actually a real person. This is Sarah and Connor. They're actually members. They bought a house and land in Capalaba. It was untitled and it was $798,000. They bought it in November 2023. The initial deposit was $47,500. The land registered in May 2024. The property now valued at $975,000. Today's profit, $177,000. And here's a picture of the property. So I don't know if Sarah's online at the moment in our group. If you are, say hello in the chat and well done. That's it for the public group. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go into the private group. So thank you everyone else for watching. Our team, if we can switch off the live stream, and we're going to go into our private group and we're going to do Q&A.